So, today we are going to be making some pesto coated salmon. Super easy, super quick. Basically just have the salmon in the house. Pesto is one of those things that we know at this point we're going to make once a week. Just have it around. Really easy thing to just make anything. You know, like pesto eggs, pesto rice, pesto salmon, pesto pasta, pesto cereal. Okay, it's coming soon. Chef Cass. Your kid's grocery aisle. So, the thing with salmon, we hear a lot about farm raised, fresh caught, or fish in general for that matter. And I'm going to be honest, I don't love farm raised salmon. I know how it's fed, I know how the color is developed, and I know kind of some of the offshoots, some of the negative effects of farming and what that does to the ecosystem. But at the same time, I don't always want to spend $22 a pound for fish. So farm raised salmon is the type of thing that, number one, if I find a place that I like their salmon, I'll probably pick that out. If it looks good, that always helps, right? But it's not something I'm eating all the time. I want to go for some of those fresh caught, the wild caught fish, not always the farm raised. So I'm going to heat my pan over a high heat. Let's get that up to temperature. Meanwhile, got my salmon on a beautiful plate for the camera. And I'm going to sprinkle just a little bit of sea salt across the top, keeping in mind that we're going to start with the skin side down. We're going to cook the flesh side first, so that when the time comes, it'll be nice to plate. And just a little sprinkle of fresh black pepper. And we really only have to do this on one side because we can do it on the other side while it is cooking. And you could do it on both sides if you want to, but personal preference. Pan's getting up to temperature. Standard ops, SOs as we like to call them at the Fortress of Awesomeness. You're going to get that temperature to basically right before. We don't want the pan to be smoking hot, but we want it to be pretty hot where we're going to hear a sizzle when we put that salmon on there. And we're going to do the salmon in kind of a way that I like to get a nice crisp on the outside, but still have a nice tender on the inside. And how I do that is I start the salmon in a dry pan, or just a little bit of spray, very hot. I develop a seal on the outside, like a searing. After that, I'll add in some olive oil or sesame oil of your choice and develop that crispiness on the outside. Because the dry heat, while you're going to develop the browning, and you're going to seal in the moisture, seal in the flavor, you're not really going to get a crisp. And salmon is kind of a fatty fish, so you don't have to add in too much oil. And if you see a lot of oil come out in the pan, you actually don't have to add any. But if you need to add a little bit of oil, and we're going to do that today, just to crisp it up, you can do that. So our pan, just about up to temperature. When handling fish, you want to be delicate. Don't go tossing your fish around like it's your baseball. I don't know why you would do that, but I can see an outtakes video in the future. So you get a nice little sizzle, also known as sugs, Terrell sugs. Shout out! Come on the Chef Cass Show. We'll make you some good food. We'll get you healed up quickly. Not even like a Terrell Suggs fan, but you know, just the name Sizzle is possibly one of the great nicknames of all time. So how do you not become a fan of someone who he took the first letter of his last name, hence Suggs, and just replaced the Uggs with Izzle, right? So he went from being Terrell Suggs to T Suggs to T Sizzle. I mean, it's a brilliant move. It's a brilliant career move, if you will. I could be a Kizzle. That just doesn't work as well. I'm gonna stick with Chef Cass, but Terrell Suggs, T Sizzle, come on the show. All right, next, after that little diatribe, we've got that little bit of browning that I discussed earlier, developed on the fish. We're going to put a little bit of olive oil in the pan. Now, at this point, be careful because fish is also very rich in moisture, so the reaction of your fish with the oil is going to have some offshoot. Now, as I said before, we want to season both sides. So at this point, you can season the second side of your fish. And I still got this at a high heat. I'm basically going to do that until I've developed a little bit of a golden brown And you can take a spatula, you can use a fish spatula, or we're going to use a couple different spatulas today, just to take a look underneath, kind of check and see what that looks like. Move all around. And I'm using a pretty thin spatula, and you can see underneath more than I can. Starting to develop some color, starting to develop some brown, but it's not quite crispy yet. That tells me I need to add a little bit more olive oil. Now, if you're using a smaller pan, you can probably use a little bit less oil and contain it more towards the center of the pan. I don't mind using a big pan for this because with my fish, it takes a little bit more care to move it around. So small pan's fine, big pan also an option. You can see I've got two different spatulas here. One is more there's a little bit more firmness to it. The other one's a little bit thinner, so it's easier to slide into the fish. Typical fish spatulas are metal and very thin. I just don't want to use metal in my non-stick pan. So now that texture I was looking for is definitely starting to come along. You can also tell just by how easily the fish slides on the pan. If it slides very easily, you can sense that there's a hardness, a crispness to the outside of the fish. It'll just and it will maybe make that sound effect. I'm not even joking. Sometimes I'm joking. This isn't one of those times. Take a look. And eye test is a pretty good test too. That's kind of what it sounds. And get under your fish firmly. Flip carefully. If you have to do a quick flip like that, just make sure it's aimed away from you and from all children. You can see that it's a nice golden brown color. I could have gone a little bit more, but we're also going to coat this with a layer of pesto, and I didn't want to burn the fish or overcook the fish now and then cook it more and end up burning it. And you can see this side, just a little bit more time, and it started to develop more of a golden brown color. Now as the bottom side is cooking, I've got my basting brush ready. And again, being careful because that oil right now is bubbling, and not like in a good way. You might get stung a little bit, but it's like paintball, it hurts, but you're not gonna die. I've learned this. I thought I was gonna die by splattering. It didn't happen. But when it gets, if you get if it comes up too high on you, turn the heat down, take it off the heat, do what you need to do. Don't fight the oil, it will win. And don't fight the feeling either. Just saying. Anyhow, be live right now on the Chef Kaz Show. Live from space. Hey, virtual pound. Virtual pound to all the castronauts. Virtual pound to Joe Buddha. Virtual pound to Veronica Lopez. And virtual pound to Lisa. I don't want to mispronounce her last name. And I appreciate all the support thoroughly coming from the Castronaut universe. We feel it flowing in. We're getting the fan mail daily. And it's only a matter of time till the Castronaut World Takeover commences. Join the awesomeness movement, chefkaz.com. We're coming to you live from space. So, you can sense now that the bottom also has a nice browning to it. At that point, we're going to turn it over one more time. Keep in mind that the color development on the bottom is not going to be the same as the color development on the top. Some people also worry about the skin. From everything I've learned, the skin contains a lot of the oils of the fish. And when you hear about one of the reasons that we're eating fish, besides it just being an easy to digest, lean protein, high quality protein source, we often hear about omega-3s and omega-6 fatty acids. Now what we really want are the omega-3s. Omega-6s, our diet is actually very high in already. Why are omega-3s and omega-6 is so essential, so important, is because they're essential fatty acids. And that basically means that they're fatty acids that our bodies can't produce, but still need for functioning. So we need to get them from sources like nuts and fish. You can also get things from flax seeds, from ground, but a lot of the oils are contained in the skin. So if you're taking the skin off, you're not getting quite as many of the benefits. I'm going to do one more coat of pesto on the bottom. I've also reduced the heat. I want to take this out of the oil because I can see this is starting to cook pretty quickly. And keeping in mind our pesto, we have garlic, we have nuts, we have cheese, and all of those things are going to burn much more quickly than just our fish. At the same time, if we develop a nice coloration, it's just going to add flavor. Woo! That's looking pretty. And we want to get a little bit of that crispness. We don't want to cook it too long here because you can see it's just on the verge, but that'll taste nice and it also gives us a really nice texture. We're going to turn the heat off, go quickly underneath. You're going to have a roasting rack set up, or basically like a drying rack set up, so that the steam gets released from both sides so the fish can cool. And keep in mind also that there's a residual heat in the fish. That means that there's heat still in there, still cooking on the insides. So we've got that nice browning on the outside, and by putting it on a rack right here, we're going to allow that crispness to maintain. If you've ever put down a piece of toast or something else that you've browned, grilled cheese for example, on a plate, and then you end up with one side that's nice and crispy and the other side soggy, this is the way to avoid that. So we're going to do the same thing with the fish here. We keep nice crispness on the bottom and on the top, and when we're ready to eat it, we're going to put it right on top of our polenta. Finally, for our plating, our polenta cakes are nice and brown on both sides. We're going to scoop under that real quickly. Try to get the whole thing on your spatula. I'm going to put that right in the center of your plate there. Okay? Now you can have the option of going with the salmon or the goat curry, but actually what we're going to do today is a little bit of both. Now we're going to do sort of a Chef Kaz style surf and turf with our fish off to one side and our goat meat on the other. And there we have the Chef Kaz surf and turf with Bengali goat curry and pesto seared salmon over a sun-dried tomato goat cheese polenta cake. Thank you. This has been Chef Kaz, Cooking with Chef Kaz. We'll see you next time.